Well, there have been series of talks between organized labor and the federal government as regards the planned nationwide strike for Wednesday, 7th of June 2023. As we speak now, labor union leaders are in a closed-door meeting with the federal government in a move to stop the industrial action. There's also a court order that has restrained NLC and TUC from embarking on the planned industrial action pending the determination of the motion on notice filed by the federal government. In this interview, TVC News had an exclusive chat with the former Secretary General of NUPENG, Kokori, in his Warri home in Delta State on Sunday. Former General Secretary NUPENG, Kokori, thank you for joining us. So, organized labor announced recently that it would embark on a national industrial action from Wednesday, that 7th of June. As an experienced worker in the oil and gas sector, do you think this is the right step in the right direction?
First of all, I sympathize with Nigerians at this difficult time because Nigerians are passing through a really harrowing time these past years. And it's difficult, actually, for people like us who have always lived their life backing the downtrodden, the masses of this country, to actually speak on this issue at this time. My time in labor and in struggles, Nigeria has not degenerated to this situation. But then, we still went on big struggles. We went to the trenches, but then we were fighting for freedom and democracy for our country. And we thought that with democracy, Nigeria will fly and really behave like the giant of Africa. In Nigeria, the question of petroleum subsidy, increase in fuel, is like an opium of the people. Immediately it comes, Nigerians are on one side, and they will fight the government. And that is the easiest strike. Nigerian workers, they don't even need mobilization. So we're in a difficult time. But this is, as a nationalist, as an elder statesman, and somebody with vast experience in economics, in national and international politics, the oil industry, I feel Nigeria has been living on borrowed times since the time of Jonathan. Even since Obasanjo's time, we've been living on borrowed times. A country that imports nearly everything. But why I'm so disillusioned more is the issue why for 24 years of democracy, 22 years after I left the labor movement, when I left the oil industry, Nigeria's 4 refineries were working at full blast. We're having almost about, at times up to 25 rigs and pumping almost 2.5 million barrels per day. And we're refining. Warri was on, Port Harcourt was on, Kaduna was on. And I even remembered in those days, Nigerian PMS, AGO, and the kerosene is one of the best in the world. The kerosene that comes from Warri Refinery was graded as the best kerosene in the whole world. Then, since I left the oil industry, these refineries were breaking down one by one. And Nigerian leaders were sitting there looking at them. And even the labor movement, who are supposed to be the tribune of the people, I've always told them. The labor movement, since some of us left the labor movement, have not played this role in this country. The labor movement is the best organized institution in any country, apart from the military. And even the military is a command organization. So the labor movement should monitor the government. Now we have no refinery work. The labor movement have been there washing them, importing oil all these years, frittering off our hard-earned foreign exchange. We produce the crude and it goes out, it comes back with a cartel feeding fat on Nigerians. And the Nigerian masses being pauperized every day. And every day falling below the poverty line. So we are in a very bad situation. But like as I said, we've been living on borrowed time on this issue of petroleum subsidy. And Nigerians know that right from the days of Jonathan. So, well, what is happening today just have to happen. The subsidy have to go. There is no way you can let Nigeria now supply our fuel to the whole of the West African sub-region, spending over 6 trillion of our hard-earned money, and not that the masses are really gaining anything from it, but we are feeding the whole of the sub-region. And what I'm saying, every enlightened Nigerian knows it. The labor movement knows it. The National Union of Petroleum and Gas Workers, which I was a founding father, we know it. The Pengassin, my sister union, which I contributed to in building up. Because I was a career unionist. I was just not an ordinary unionist. I'm a trained, world-known labor leader. So I know what I'm saying. And we in the industry, we know what happens in the industry. So when we now went into this importation of finished products, we're killing our economy. And I'm happy that before these elections, the 3 major candidates of the political parties, that is the APC candidate, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the Labour Party candidate, former Governor Peter Obi, and the Vice President, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, who was the say you are giving a strike off. And we all know, we're all expecting it. So what I want to appeal to the Nigerian Labour Congress, the TUC, that is organized labor, is that they should go back to the table with government and suspend this action and discuss with the government fruitfully a real dialogue of all stakeholders in the petroleum industry.
The Petroleum Industrial Act doesn't accommodate the inclusion of fuel subsidy. What role should Labour have played before now if they had any objections, bearing in mind that every single stakeholder was carried along when specifics were earlier discussed?
That is why I'm confused with this type of national strike notice of 3 working days. Ultimatum of 3 working days for a national strike. I mean, talking seriously to the labor movement. Who is taking that decision? Where are these type of labor leaders from? You're talking of a national strike, serious, 7 days after inauguration of your government. You are talking of a national strike with 3 days working days notice. Strike of, is it economism? Strike of economism? No, you should at least even give us 14 days notice. Is it a political strike? Even a political strike that is purely political, like what NUPENG did, at least 14, 7 days notice, working days. And you go into dialogue. Then after that, if the government refuses to talk with you, you give another 7 days at least to warn the government. That is even a political strike. Or economism, you can even give a 1 month strike. That's strikes based on economy and standard of living. Even in all my experience, even a wildcat strike, obviously a national federation cannot go on a wildcat strike. And a wildcat strike only happens in chapters of union, in branches of union. Those are the only strikes that you can say you even give 24 hours notice in just a branch of any organization. But a national strike, where do they get it from? 3 days, working days. So I have to appeal to my comrades. They should not joke with this democracy. They're well-intentioned for Nigeria. Nigerians are suffering. But I know a man like Asiwaju Tinubu. He was in the trenches with us. He knows the suffering of Nigerians. And I'm watching him. We were watching him. Because those things that were supposed to be done in Nigeria by Obasanjo, by Jonathan, were not done. We were disappointed. What is the whole struggle of democracy on June 12th? It was to decentralize Nigeria and give power to the people, full-blown democracy, and we grow at our space, not a command economy, not a unitary system, command militarized. But we've won it. And after winning it, the politicians have been gambling with it. And I will appeal as the father and one of the founding fathers of NUPENG and Pengassi, that they know what I'm talking about. And they know the working of the oil industry. They should advise the Nigerian labor centers properly. They should not just go into a blind strike.
The president recently announced that minimum wage will be increased as a result of the petrol subsidy removal. Is it still appropriate for labor to go ahead and disrupt economic activities?
Nigerians who are under established employment, real employment, who enjoy the minimum wage are not up to 5% of Nigerians, both the private and public sector. The market woman, the artisan, the ordinary Nigerian worker does not have minimum wage. He struggles for his own wages. That is why when the president now said the question of energy will be tackled, the question of security will be tackled, that is what the labor movement should hold the government to and the economy, and start working with the government through dialogue. 3 days notice, you are going to read partisanship into it. And once you read partisanship into the central labor movement, organized labor is gone. So it should not be that way. Because there's no, everybody in the labor movement does not belong to the obedient movement. Neither do they belong to the APC or the PDP. Nigerian workers and Nigerian masses who bears the brunt of all this belong to different parties, persuasions, and none even belonging to parties. 50% of Nigerians don't belong to any party. Let me say 70% don't belong to any of these parties. They're on their own. They struggle for themselves.
All right, let's talk about what the organized private sector is saying, particularly under the leadership of the Director General of NECA, Adewale Oyeride. They are supporting subsidy removal and also are saying that the country cannot keep subsidizing inefficiency and corruption. Though the employers' body is advocating for a quick revamp of local refineries, the question is, how did we get to this point where all our refineries collapse at the same time? Shouldn't there be a proper investigation to probe the situation, owing to the fact that an individual was able to build a refinery within a stipulated period of time?
I agree with everything he has said, and that was the failure of the elites. And that was the failure of the civil society led by organized labor. If the elites are going mad, it is the responsibility of organized civil society led by labor to whip them online. But labor have not done that for a long time. They will not. I think maybe the type of sacrifice we were making in our own time, built on real patriotism, nationalistic instinct, is missing in some of the leaders we have today, both in the private sector, the political sector, and even in the civil society.
The position of the federal government is that President Tinubu did not remove fuel subsidy. The previous administration did. Though in a speech, he reminded Nigerians the fuel subsidy is gone. Do you think that oil marketers, NNPC Limited, and other stakeholders were not patient enough for government to reel out interventions before declaring increase in prices, and also Labour now declaring a nationwide strike?
First of all, I have to commend the present government and the NNPC for coming out immediately with a template of prices across the whole country. It was announced impromptu, yes. But there's no time you will announce removal of subsidy in Nigerians that will not come as a shock to every Nigerian. But if they have wasted more time, if it was Buhari, he should have left it. The template, there should have been no template. Like we know the template now in Delta State. We know the template in Borno State. We know the template in Oyo State. So marketers cannot go more than that any longer. But before, it should have just been left anyhow. And the queues should have continued. And the exploitation should have continued. But now there are no queues. If you have your money, you go and buy. It's a tough issue. So Tinubu, president, and his team, and organized labor, and organized private sector, and all stakeholders should put their heads together in the next 14 days and find a solution to it. Not an immediate strike of 3 days notice. Like as I said, is it a wildcat action? Is it a strike of economism? Is it a political strike? Or is it a partisan strike? So to me, it's Labour have to answer that. You see, I talk freely because I've played my role in my country and I've done my duty to my country. And no matter the pains I'm going through today, the deprivations I suffered all my life for my country without reward, today I'm happy living my modest life in my country home.
NNPC is saying Nigeria cannot afford to subsidize fuel anymore. Will you encourage government to borrow to fund fuel subsidy that stakeholders have agreed is inefficient?
No subsidy. Nobody's borrowing any money for subsidy. You borrow that money, is going to private pockets. The question of subsidy is what? Nobody's going to take that. The question of the $800 million palliative, that's a non-issue. What are you going to do with 5,000? Is it 5,000 we used to cushion the suffering of Nigerians? 5,000 means nothing to anybody. And who will get it? That's another shop money for the boys.
So what happens if Mr. President decides to concede? Will he in any way be against the law?
Labour is a pressure group, and it remains a pressure group. So pressure group does not dictate to government. And they are lucky. It's not a military dictatorship, which some of us ran and fought with. A military dictatorship is the day you say this, your union is shut down, like what happened to NUPENG, and we went underground. So Labour should just ask for dialogue, and the government should respond to them, because Labour is the most critical sector of the economy. When I say Labour, it's not members of Nigerian Labour Congress and the TVC. I'm talking of the Nigerian masses, including market women, laborers, artisans, and everybody. But Labour is the best organized group. So obviously they should talk with government, not dictating to government.
Negotiation is still ongoing between government and organized labor. According to the law of the land, there should be a 21-day notice or ultimatum before embarking on an industrial action. With your experience as a labor leader, why will labor leaders take such action at such a time like this?
But I've said it. Why? So why should I repeat myself? Say why? 3 days ultimatum, working days. It never happened anywhere. Of a national strike, not a branch strike. A branch strike takes a minimum of 14 days or 7 days notice. It's only a wildcat action that takes even less than 24 hours. And that is done in a very serious situation in a unit or a branch of a trade union.
So there is provision for subsidy till June 2023. Some have described His Excellency President Bola Tinubu's statement that subsidy is gone on May 29 as courageous and not giving room to support corruption. How do you react?
Like as I said, we all saw that coming. But I know they've been talking with Labour for years on this subsidy thing. So there's no other way you should have announced it, because they've been dialoguing. And again, during the campaign rounds, none of them were mincing words. Atiku was saying it, he will remove it. Peter Obi himself, who is not a proletariat, Peter Obi is not a progressive radical activist. He's a lucky man who just went into labor. And because of the situation in Nigeria, he took advantage of it. God loves him. So, yeah, but he was one of the first people who said, how can Peter B accept subsidy? Subsidy that he knows that it was a scam. There's no way Peter B will retain subsidy. And he said it. And Atiku said it. Oh, as for Atiku, we should sell the whole refineries. So Tinubu himself, like as I said, is a good man. We will worship, but we worship because in this country, people we know as good people, immediately they come to power, they change. So we will worship, whether we are friends or we are no friends. We will worship. If you look at that picture, there you will see Tinubu with myself in those days, as a young governor, with all the mashaba and everything, the mothers. When I was my sender, we were close. And during this whole struggle, I was their leader. So, NUPENG was the arrowhead of that struggle, the oil workers.
Talk to us about what your own recommendations are for organized labor as they insist on the reversal.
My dear comrades, I respect you people. I acknowledge you people. As for you, Joe, you are one of my young comrades. You've covered me for so many years. And I know you. As for Sifu, you are a junior comrade, which I know. And you lead one of the most powerful unions in Nigeria after NUPENG. That is the Pengasin. And we are all sister unions. We liberated this country, NUPENG and Pengasin. So, and we liberated this country from tyrants. We will not liberate this country from liberals. Tinubu is a liberal leader, democratically elected. So don't joke with this democracy. Go for dialogue. That is what Nigeria wants at this moment. Don't add to their pains. If not, you destroy labor to be seen as partisan, political partisan strike.
Former General Secretary NUPENG, thank you for talking to us.